Hello, everyone. We are live again. It's one of our talks with the Meet the Filmmakers series of the Socially Relevant Film Festival 2022. We have a new group of filmmakers. I am so happy to talk to all these filmmakers because they are the reason why I get up every morning and get to doing what I do. I love films. I love filmmakers. I'm a filmmaker myself. I hate film festivals who don't respond to filmmaker emails. And in order to avoid that, I am on top of it. Even if it's 4 a.m., I make sure to answer the emails. And some filmmakers complain, they say my emails are too long. Well, they are detailed because there are a lot of things to remember when you are part of a film festival that cares, part of the film festival that has a lot of organization in place, and there are details that filmmakers need to know. So you have to read everything, filmmakers. So if you're listening, any filmmakers out there, when you get emails, please go into the details. Everything is in there. So this is the fourth, I think, of our Meet the Filmmakers series. And today, we're going to talk about it in a second. Let me just tell you in general terms, first of all, about what the festival is about. It's the Socially Relevant Film Festival, which I founded 9 years ago, and it is exclusively dedicated or based to dedicated to screening films that deal with social issues and human interest stories. We try to steer away from any sort of violence, and whether it's overt violence or gratuitous violence, as I would like to call it, on screen, but also violent forms of filmmaking. But by that, what I mean is abrupt cuts, very loud music, explosions, and it's like you come out of the cinema or the screening with a headache. It's as though somebody has taken a hammer and hit you on the head with it. And you want to say, I wanted to pass a relaxed moment, learn something new, find out about other people's lives or about something that I can identify with. And instead, I ended up with a headache. So hopefully, the Socially Relevant Film Festival films don't give you a headache. Personally, I can say that they teach a lot. I have personally learned so much programming all these films over all these years that we have been doing the festival. To be frank, without counting this year's 64 films in the selection, so far in the 8 years, this is our ninth edition, we have screened 550 films from 38 countries. So I am surprised actually how we were able to do this. And the way we have been able to do it is because we have three very, very important ingredients. The first ingredient is the filmmakers. If you don't have filmmakers who are telling good stories, who are making good films, who fall within the guidelines of our socially relevant definition, you don't have a festival. Number two, the team. This is not a one-person show. You cannot put together a 64 film program. At one time, in one of the years, we've had 72 films in the program. It's not possible to do it without a team that works very hard, that is there on top of everything. And the third is very important as well. It's our partners and sponsors who come every year on board with us, support us, help us, give us the funds or the facilities that we need in order for us to be able to put this festival together. Of course, there are other ingredients as well, like the jury who decides who is the winner. And on the 20th of March, we are going to find out all about that. So without further ado, let me just put the festival website in case you need to know more about it, and bring on our filmmakers who will themselves introduce themselves briefly and talk about their films. And then we're going to go into some questions with them. So if we go clockwise, I see Jean-Noël Pierre next to me. So Jean-Noël, you can go ahead.
Hi, I'm Jean-Noël Pierre. I'm just right now from Nancy University in France. And my film, Absolutely Must Go, is about uprooted people, Chagosian uprooted people. There has been 2,000 people who have been uprooted from their native lands just to build an American base during the decolonization process. And I have followed one family in particular.
This is a very interesting story, if I might make a little parenthesis, because we have a bunch of themes of films that deal with indigenous people who were inhabitants of a particular land, and they have, for whatever reason, been driven away from it by colonization, by war, by takeover, or in this case of the Chagosians, which was very interesting to find out about. And we are going to talk about it shortly. Catherine, Kat.
Hi, Nora. It's good to see you. I'm calling in from Los Angeles, California. I am the co-director of Lazy People with Jacqueline Postagen and the producer at Bliss Films. I'm going to let Jackie speak a little bit more as the writer to the message behind our film.
Great. And Iris?
Hi, I'm Dr. Iris Mohr. Aside from being a filmmaker, I'm also a professor and chair of marketing at St. John's University. My film is a Manhattan Spring Chronicle. During COVID, like everyone else in Manhattan, we were home, working from home, and I took my camera out and I want to capture the moment of what was happening in Manhattan during the spring, during this difficult time.
Yeah, very important. We also, your film is part of our new, I mean, we did it last year as well, the COVID series, because a lot of people made films during that period, including myself. I must say, I had a film which was supposed to be a play, then it turned into a Zoom play, then it turned into a film, and it did a little bit the festival circuits, which it is still doing. And we thought it deserves a category of its own. So this year, the category is called Lockdown because a lot of the films were made under lockdown or speak about the effects of the lockdown. Jacqueline?
Hi, my name is Jacqueline Postagen. I wrote a short film called Lazy People. I co-directed it with Kat. And the film is basically a love letter to the Los Angeles Armenian community. It takes place in an apartment building that's occupied completely by Armenians. We shot it on location at the apartment building. And the goal of the movie was really to just expose the lives of the women in this building and the things that you don't realize that people are going through. So it really touches on kind of the second Nagorno-Karabakh war, which took place in 2020, which was devastating. And yeah, that was kind of the goal with the project. And we were blessed to have Nora in the film. She did a fantastic job. And yeah, we're happy to be here.
Yeah, this is interesting because your film also it deals with the aftermath of the character that I was playing is the woman from Artsakh who, as the result of the war, has come to Los Angeles. And it's a screening with a documentary, Armenian documentary called The Desire to Live, which is also about indigenous people in Artsakh who have lived on those lands for thousands of years and now, as a result of the war, have been uprooted, have been sent away from their homes. So I thought it would be a good combination to see the narrative short and then followed by that film, which we are.
That's a great pairing.
Yeah, it's on Sunday, by the way. Yeah, well, we'll talk about the schedules later. And Douglas, last but not least.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, my name is Douglas Mueller. I was director of the short Alone, which is also in the COVID category. It was a single solo violin piece that we filmed during the pandemic. It was a commission based on the pandemic. And so we were premiering a new piece of work that was inspired by the pandemic, decided to shoot it. And so that's our film.
And it was very appropriate as well. We also put it in the lockdown series, and it's screening in person in our third short films grouping, along with Iris's film. And it's under the lockdown title because alone is, I mean, so obvious, because people were locked down and it was in lockdown and they were all alone. So this is alone, and it's very interesting because you see the violinist and then turns around and it's an empty auditorium. So everybody was alone. And we're also planning to do another film festival later on. It's a disease. I think I've caught this disease now, and there's no turning back. So. And to be honest, when I first started this, I had sworn to myself never to do a film festival myself, because I had been guest curating and curating for a bunch of other film festivals before internationally. And I knew what it takes and what a crazy undertaking it is to put together a film festival. And I had said never. So they say never say never. So there you go. So I'm happy to salute the people who are watching us. We have quite a good crowd. And please, everybody, put your comments or say hello in your comments, and we will acknowledge you. And you can direct your questions to either one of the filmmakers who are here, to myself, or just ask a general question that everybody might want to chip in and answer. So there, we're going to go round again, and this time my question is going to be about how did you come up with the idea of this film, of your film, when it started? Sometimes we've had filmmakers who told us like, well, 10 years ago when I was, and I go, wow, really bravo for something to have been born 10 years ago, like an idea, and for them to have stuck through it, through thick and thin, and all the difficulties, and then after all these years finally realized it and brought it to the screen. I really applaud that. So, Jean-Noël, how did you get the idea for your film?
The idea come from my father. Who I was 10 years old. And my father used to read newspaper every day, every morning. And one day he was reading his newspaper, and I just asked him, the boy who I was, just asked him, what are you reading? What it is about? And he told me, in Creole, in Mauritian Creole, Bizaranzot Chagos. They have to Chagosian people have to get Chagos back. And I didn't understand. Yes, Olivier Bancoux is their new lead. Okay, who is Olivier Bancoux? I was 10 years old. I didn't know. And when he died in 2014, I just wanted to know more deeper what this story was about, and I tried to go to meet the Chagosian people and to understand for what my father told me when I was a younger boy.
Yeah, it's very interesting because sometimes we are impressed with certain stories. And I'm sure with the Armenian stories that we tell as well, a lot of it has to do with diaspora. A lot of it has to do with being away from lands and all that. And these are memories. These are stories that were passed to generations from older people. It's not people who lived it. You were not one of the people who were driven away from the Chagosians that were driven away. But these stories came to you from different generations. And it's the memory that has been passed on to us that makes us want to get up and do something about it. Because a lot of times the people with the actual memory are no longer around.
Yes.
That's another responsibility. So,
and it took
yeah.
yes, sorry.
Yep.
Yes. it talks also about power dynamics, you see, and how some decisions can affect indigenous people or people who have because they were black people or other people, whatever being, but they are on a remote island, black people, and they were illiterate. They did not have education, and that's, for me, it's important to talk about that and to let people know what has really happened.
You pointed to something very important, which is what I also said: education. That's why this festival is important, because it shines the spotlight on many, many issues about which people have absolutely no idea, including myself. Every day, every year, when we are programming the festival, invariably there is a subject or a theme or a social issue that I had no idea about. And one of the films instructs me about it, and I get, wow, I didn't know this. And if the film is well made, absolutely, it's in the program. So it has that educational value. And in your film, you also point out how Chagossians, when they went out to Europe and got an education, were able to do something about the country. So we'll talk about that later. So, Kat, how did the idea of Lazy People, which I was happy to be part of as an actress, my important hat, as a film festival organizer. So there you go.
It is funny. I do feel like Jackie and I are in the wrong order here, because I found out about this story when Jackie's script hit my inbox, and I was really just blown away with it. You know, the entire experience has been this amazing opportunity to get to know a community that is just so rich in culture and in history and a lot of just community feeling. Jackie, do you want to kind of tackle that one? Pretend we're in the same spot.
Sure. I wrote the script. I wrote it around November 2020. And it basically came from a place of like helplessness. I feel like it was just like we were hearing about the war. Of course, I'm a diasporan, so I've never lived in Artsakh. I've never lived in Armenia, but there is such a strong diaspora community here in Los Angeles that we were all just constantly talking about the war, hearing about the war. I mean, we went to protests, we organized protests all over Los Angeles, and it really brought everyone together in such an incredible way, but under such sad circumstances. And yeah, I mean, it came from a place of trying to get my friends to learn about the war, to ask me questions about the war, and it just this helplessness of no one knew what was going on. And that's where the script came from, and that's where the major theme of like just not knowing what people are going through came from. So I've always loved LA. I mean, I've always loved the Armenian community in Los Angeles. And this building, funnily enough, one of my best friends lives in the building, and I've been going to the building for years, and I always thought it was such a rich setting for a movie, and there's so many characters that live there, just naturally the neighbors. And I always knew I wanted to write something there. So I think trying to spread awareness for the war and having that setting in place and being so familiar with it, that's really where the story came from. So I wrote it around November 2020, and then I sent it to my friend Kat, who's an incredible director and producer, and she workshopped it with me, and we went on this journey together, and we made the film, and it was such a great experience.
Yeah, it was actually. I don't live in the building, by the way, but I was flown in from New York. I was happy to have landed the part, and we had such a great time. It was a wonderful shoot and a great atmosphere. You should do the sequel in a feature.
Sure. Let's see. This was a tiny proof of concept, maybe. Let's see.
So Iris, so we're gonna probably sometimes, if you feel we jumped you, it's not because Jackie and Kat are on the same project, so they might echo off of each other, and they are co-directors. That's why. So Iris.
Okay, so for me it was, I remember at the start of lockdown, where I was informed from work, that's it, that we're going to be going online, teaching our students. Well, for me, I remember starting my morning with my cup of coffee, watching New York 1, trying to keep up what's happening with the pandemic. And it was horrifying. It was very scary here in Manhattan. But I felt that I was watching the news, but no one's really getting what's really happening here. And that's when I started taking my camera out and just really capturing what people are feeling, people's faces. When the stores were bordered, I remember for me, it wasn't just taking my camera and filming the bordered stores. For me, it was walking the street and feeling that I'm in a lumber yard. The smell was so strong. And there were just moments that I just felt that you couldn't just capture in the news, just like even getting out to the terrace and watching the way everybody was excited just to get out and clap their hands. There were moments there that I just felt that they needed to be on film. People need to remember. People really needed to know what was happening in New York City.
Yeah, it was scary. And I remember one of my favorite parts during the lockdown was at 7 p.m. when we used to all come out and take pots and pans and whatever. Oh my God, I get emotional even just talking about it. And we used to make noise to honor the essential workers who are caring for COVID people. Yeah. And it brings us to the topic that renders homage to the memory of the people we lost. So, Douglas, help me. I don't want to sit here and cry.
All right, I'll save you. I've been working with the Monterey Symphony here in Monterey with, when COVID had started, they canceled all their usual, orchestral concerts, and we were doing a series of solo shows. So we would bring in a cellist or a trombonist and do a little live stream with the folks, who weren't getting to perform. And so we were doing a few months of those. And in the process, Mr. Weinglass had been commissioned to write a piece, and he was working on that. And as he was finishing that up, the plan was to premiere it for an audience. And since that wasn't going to happen, we started trying to think about, we didn't want to just do kind of a live show like we had been doing. We had been doing live streams. We wanted to try to make it more of, plan a little better. We add lights and try to make it, a standalone piece that was not like, we weren't trying to shoot a small concert. We were just trying to make a more of a music video. And so, I was talking to the executive director at the Monterey Symphony, Nicola Riley, and she said, we want to do, we want to do one of these solo shows again, but we want to, kind of, step it up a bit. And usually the Monterey Symphony hosts their orchestral shows in a big hall with, 700 people and a full orchestra. And so when we thought about doing it there, I said, well, why don't we, instead of doing the traditional thing where the audience is looking at the stage, let's flip it around so we could see all the missing people behind. And that was a big catalyst to start, making it more of a, just having more teeth to the production, as opposed to just having 5 cameras and turning it on when the stream starts. We were trying to tell a story with the lights, tell a story with the cameras, and that's how it all came about.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I want to take a moment here because a couple of people who are watching from the audience have asked questions, and maybe this is a good moment for us to acknowledge them. Thank everybody that's joining in the program and tackle those questions. We have Bartan Matosian here, and he's asking, it's a question for all the filmmakers. What unique challenges did you face while creating your piece? And between parentheses, he says, aside from masking, for example, wearing masks. Well, between parentheses, I will also say that during December 2020, I happened to be, from September to December, I was in Paris, and I did a workshop with 7 casting directors, not like the Los Angeles or New York casting workshops where you come in for 2 hours. The first hour, the casting director talks about themselves and how they proceed with their work. And then the second hour, you have a minute or something to do something. This was over 10 days, 8 hours a day with one casting director, 2 days each, or sometimes 1 full day with the casting director. So it was a fantastic experience. Anyway, during that time, we were all wearing masks, if you can imagine. What kind of casting workshop is that with a mask, you will say? The only person who was allowed not to have the mask was the person who was being filmed. Everybody else, camera, even the person giving them the lines, feeding them the lines, were masked. But let's hear it from the filmmakers if you want to answer that question. It could be that your film was already shot when COVID hit, so that's fine too. So let's go around. Who wants to jump in? Maybe on this one, we'll just jump in.
I'll jump in.
Maybe you, because yours was right in the middle of the...
Yes, I'll jump in. I think for me, the challenge was I want to capture the moment, yet there were certain things I couldn't do. I wasn't comfortable interviewing people with a mic because at the time, you know, if you would just get close to somebody, they would jump away from you because everybody was so scared. So I didn't conduct interviews. Also, when I tried, I found that with the mask, it just didn't come out the same way. So that was one challenge. Another challenge was that there was so much going on and I want to get in the film. Like I heard about comfort. I heard that I have to get the ship in my film. So now I had to run. I had to go do that. Get people on the terrace. Let me get that moment. So there were a lot of things that happened like that I felt, gee, this is the time I got to go out there with the camera and get it in the film.
Yeah, also, let's make a distinction because yours is a documentary and you had to be in the moment. You had to capture what was going on. Whereas Lazy People, for example, is a narrative. So there is a little bit more planning there and more leeway. And Douglas's is more like, of course, it's staged, it's one person. So anyway, so Kat, what do you have to say about that?
Well, I faced a slightly unique challenge on Lazy People in that it is Armenian English language. I am not a fluent Armenian speaker, to say the least. I basically learned any Armenian language that I did working on this project. So that was a really fascinating experience to be working hand in hand with a fluent speaker, Jackie, and working to direct actors where I understood what the dialogue was because of just the amount of times that we'd gone through the script, and I had just a very clear understanding of what was happening, but you know, to not have a actual word-to-word understanding of what was going on. It was a fascinating trust relationship that Jackie and I had in this way, to be able to, you know, rely on each other's experiences and our expertise in these different ways in collaborating together. Yeah. So that would be probably the biggest one.
That's an interesting point that you're bringing up, being able to direct, because I'm reading a book right now in which the director has actually, Brian Cox is talking about his book, his beautiful book, by the way. I'm not commissioned to promote it, but I have to say it. And he's talking about a time when he went to Moscow and did a workshop at the Moscow Art Theater. Of course, he doesn't speak Russian, but he was able to conduct the workshop. In my case, it has happened to me that I have been invited to Norway to do a workshop with Norwegian actors who were preparing monologues to be accepted at the Oslo Norwegian National Theater. And I don't speak, obviously, a word of Norwegian, but I noticed that it's even better because immediately I could see when they were not being honest, when they were just in the words and just saying something, as opposed to just really emotionally being in the moment. So sometimes the fact of not speaking the language helps, because then you're not being blinded, or your eyes are not being fogged by the language element, and you only see the emotions and the thoughts behind it. So it could be a challenge, but at the same time helpful. Yes, Jean-Noël?
Oh, yes, I will try to answer in French, just this one. Juste pour dire que justement, je trouve que c'est vachement intéressant parce que le moment où on parle pas le même langage, parce que on est dans du paraverbal, c'est-à-dire c'est ce qu'on voit, c'est ce qu'on ressent, et c'est ce que tu expliquais, Nora, à l'instant, et je trouve ça de réalisateur, je trouve qu'il y a quelque chose à aller chercher où le langage devient parole, c'est-à-dire où on a enlevé toutes les couches, on parlait de...
Oui, donne-moi une occasion de traduire. Okay, did we freeze? Is something happening?
Je trouve ça intéressant.
Yeah. So Jean-Noël is seconding what I said, that because the language barrier is a barrier, but at the same time, if it's not there, then you are focusing on the para-language, or the above the language situation, where you are communicating with other ways. It looks in the eye, or an expression, or the being present. Also, another thing is very, very important, presence, which is something very, very important for the actor. I'm going to be doing a course on that very soon, coming up. Presence. What is presence? Not being in your thoughts, not being in the past and saying, oh, I'm somebody, I'm always like that. This thing's always happened to me, always, always. And you are feeding yourself things from the past that hamper your presence. Or you are thinking, projecting yourself in the future. Am I going to look good in this scene when it's finally edited? How am I looking? And so on. Instead of doing the future or the past, being in the moment is fantastic experience, which is the most difficult thing, by the way. And that's why the language sometimes is in the way of being in the moment. Of course, with acting, you have the privilege of rehearsing and making the language your own, or so much second nature that you don't even think about it anymore and only are present. But it's very, very interesting how we can surpass that barrier or communication means. And who did not jump in on this? Doug, do you want to say something about the challenges that you met during?
Yeah, I would say we did shoot during the pandemic, and so it was one of the first times we had all been inside, so we definitely had to limit the number of people that we were using for crew, which was a big challenge. Outside of those challenges, of the COVID specific challenges, which I think are probably universal for us who are shooting, one big thing for me I wasn't, my actress was a violin player, and she was playing a piece that was really hard, and we didn't know how many times we were going to do it. I was hoping to at least get 2 takes out of it, and hoping that maybe we could get 3. We only did 2, so that was a bit of the pressure was on her to deliver, and that was, we were all kind of waiting to see how that would go. And I guess from a filmmaker standpoint, doing 2 takes, I was just very cognizant of what lenses I was wanting to use. I wanted each of the takes to not look like 2 different takes. I didn't, one thing when people shoot like a live theater or performance like this, there's a tendency to, when you shoot with an audience, all the cameras are all receded and no one's kind of upstaging the audience. And we didn't have an audience, of course, but with that same kind of vibe, I didn't want our 2 takes to be different, I just didn't want one of the takes to have cameras that seemed wider and on stage. So
Yeah.
I didn't want us to feel like you didn't see a camera in a different take because that camera should have been in that space because of. So
Yeah.
my goal was to make sure I was using all the right lenses that made me feel like it was all in the, all one take, and that one particular camera setup wasn't looking through a phantom other camera setup that wasn't in that take. So
See, this is very interesting because the person who asked the question, and many others who might be watching, a lot of times we're watching a film, and of course some editing has happened, even documentaries. Of course, editing is a well-known fact. Documentaries shoot gazillion miles of film, and then in the end you have 30 minutes or 50 or 1 hour. How do the documentary filmmakers manage to sift through all that is really mind-boggling. And on that subject, I want to say that sometimes we get documentary films that are really wonderful, but they have already said what they had to say in the first 52 minutes. And then the next 52 minutes is just a repetition of the first 52 minutes. So if anybody is watching out there of a documentary filmmakers, please make sure your film is compact, because that is a much stronger message than if you keep going on and you feel, oh, but it was such a fantastic take. Kill your darlings, as they say. You have to know how to throw away material, or maybe make another movie out of that, something else with a different angle. But don't feel like, oh, I'm not going to waste all this footage. Waste it, because then you're wasting our time, and then your film won't be accepted if it's too long or it drags and repetitious and so on. So that's a little advice there. So I have another question from another viewer. Emma is asking, particularly lazy people. Did you take time to discuss with the people in the building? If yes, how did you keep the testimony of these people, like their work, their involvement?
Right. So, yeah, Kat and I went door to door, and we went with the manager, and she kind of she helped us. She told us about everyone in the building, and we basically got down everyone's information. We asked them if they wanted to be in the movie or not. A lot of them did want to be in the movie, and that was really wonderful, having this mixture of actual residents of the building and actors on set at all times. And it was really, really, it was really great. So what we wanted to do is, we had taken down everyone who said that they wanted to be in the movie, and we found ways to put them in there. Basically, there's a party scene, and we have this great moment of these two men who are actual best friends in real life and neighbors, and they're just sitting and they're playing a game, and we integrate that into the storyline. And then, I don't know, just little moments with a few older ladies just sitting around hanging out. It kind of is a hangout movie. It's kind of weird. I never thought of this before, but it kind of is a hangout movie, and we tried to use residents from the actual building and involve them as much as possible. And yeah, I still, when I go there, everyone asks me about it, and it was a great experience. It truly was.
Yeah, it was. Kat, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, it's not like we did ever any formal interviews with the people, but I would say just the conversations with them, especially because the topic of the film is something that was very dear and near to the heart of this community. I think that informed just ways that we approach different scenes, or kind of the context behind the original meaning.
Yeah, it also got everyone on board really easily, because it was such an important issue. It still is. And everyone wanted to basically play their part. And it was so great, the amount of support we got, not just from the residents of the building, but from the entire community. And yeah, it was great.
Yeah. Well, let me take a moment here and say that most of the films on this session here are screening in person. Lazy People is screening on Sunday at 5 p.m. Along with the documentary The Desire to Live, which is about the people of Artsakh, the Armenians living there. And the two films by Douglas and Iris, they are playing in the Lockdown series, which is the Sunday morning, actually it's 1 p.m., short film block series. And Jean-Noël's film is playing online. It's not in one of our slots. Unfortunately, we had to make a decision which film, how it happens. We don't have unlimited number of in-person screens because unlike previous years, we don't have a full week in the cinema, since this is the time when people are just coming back from COVID, just learning how to be in person. And so we only have 4 days. The opening night at the Lincoln Center is on March 16 with 2 feature films. They're Algeria by Lina Swalem, and then followed by Road to the Lemon Grove, which is one of our Voices of Canada series, and they are playing at the Lincoln Center opening night at the Eleanor Bunin Monroe Film Center. Then we have 3 days only, unfortunately, Friday, Saturday, Sunday of the weekend, 18, 19, and 20 March. And those are a number of films starting Friday afternoon. Unfortunately, Friday being a weekday, we can only start the films at 3:30 p.m. And Saturday and Sunday, it's all day from 12 o'clock on Saturday and 1 o'clock on Sunday. And Sunday is also our closing awards ceremony. Regardless of whether a film is screening online or in person, it is considered for the competition. Some films are finalists, other films are just in the selection, and sometimes films do not qualify for the competition because they are not premieres. But we love them still, so they are made available online. And the online section has taught us last year with COVID and the fact that we had no choice but go online, that it reached a much wider audience. So the films that are made, most of the films, with the exception of, I think, 2 titles, everything is screening online after the in-person section. It starts on the 20th of March. Reach a much, much wider audience. That's what our experience was when we started the online offering. And it's amazing because people tune in from all over the world, whereas in the cinema, it's limited to the number of people that can come to that session. So each section has its merits. And again, once again, I thank the filmmakers for bringing us their work and trusting their babies, because when you make a movie, it's like a mother giving its newborn baby to someone else to care. And we want to know that, we want you to know that we care for your baby as much as you care for your baby. So coming back to the next round, let me ask you what you expect from the Socially Relevant Film Festival or screening at the Socially Relevant Film Festival. How did you find out about it, and what made you decide to go with us? You know, you can answer any one of these questions. You don't have to answer them all. So, Jean-Noël?
Yes, for me, it's important to be on this festival, Socially Relevant Film Festival, because it's in the United States for me, and this story is about a US base, firstly, and secondly, it makes sense. It makes sense because it's about indigenous people, and it's something that is socially relevant, and that's the title of this festival, and that's why for me it's important to be here, and it's important to let the Chagosian people travel all over the world to talk about their story and what has happened.
Yeah. Again, I emphasize the educational value of these films. We are in the process of looking into the possibility of doing kind of like an educational channel that could be ongoing, and
That
put
would be
some of
great.
the films, especially the ones that have a strong educational value or a message or teach us about a social issue, to make them available so that people in schools, and because these things, these issues, whether it's Artsakh or the Karabakh War or Chagossians, or they are not taught in schools, unfortunately. Um, and there must be some resource, some way that people can learn about them. So, cats. Thanks. Don't. Okay, from now let's just jump in. I don't want to keep going like a school.
I'll jump in.
Yeah.
Okay. This was my second time screening at the festival. I did 2 years ago prior to COVID. I have a film, Sustain Up, which was about the pollution the fashion causes and the damage to the environment. And I was very impressed being at the festival and meeting other filmmakers, and also all the different things that I learned, and realized the importance of this festival in educating people worldwide about socially relevant issues.
Yeah, it's really important, because that's what we pride ourselves with. And when I say socially relevant, some people might not be very clear about that. And another message to filmmakers who might be watching is, please read the guidelines, because it all explains there. The film has to deal with one or other social issue. It could be women, it could be racism, sex trafficking, it could be environment, climate change, it could be indigenous populations. We have issues of family, we have LGBTQ, we have everything. There are film festivals who focus on one of these issues, which is very, very commendable. But we thought we just want to let the filmmakers tell us their stories. So when the festival is about to program the next edition, we don't previously decide what that issue, what that edition is going to be about, or what topics we are going to handle in that edition. We just go by what has been submitted to us. And then we obviously sift through and get the best production values. And then out of those films, we see what stories they are telling us, what social issues the filmmakers are burning to talk about. And that's what decides the program of the festival. So anyone else? Yeah.
Well, I'll say that I'm totally excited to screen there. I didn't, the idea, I love the idea of making movies that have an impact. I think that's, as artists, that's what inspires me to try to make work. One thing I think is cool about this alone is I didn't, when we were making it and the months afterwards, we didn't realize that it was a time capsule kind of thing, and that said something. And in the moment, I'm just trying to make something that looks pretty and stuff. And so, for time to pass and for it to look back and say like, oh man, this said something about the times, is very cool. And to be, in terms of socially relevance, I'm not, there's some far more socially relevant things going on. So it's a real honor to be on a group with the rest of you guys who are making, movies about diaspora and war, and these are very so it's an honor to be grouped in with y'all. I can't wait to see you guys' works as well. That's very cool.
Yeah, that's a good point. You should all view everybody else's films, and of course, as you know, as filmmakers, you will be given access, whether it's in person, to come and with your badge and just get in and watch whatever films you want to see, or if you're away and you're tuning in on the online section, we will offer you a pass so you can also be able to access all the films. Yeah, Doug, you were saying something else?
Oh, and you know what, that's what drew me to the, after we were done, it started to like, oh, we do have like that festivals like yourselves were starting to acknowledge COVID as as a subject matter, and that it would have its own kind of category. I think is fantastic and smart, and it's, we were kind of looking out for festivals that honored that. There's not a lot of them, but I think it's really, how could we not address this thing that everyone on Earth has dealt with, and that you guys addressed it was really what attracted us to you, and that you accepted was.
Like you say, it's the elephant in the room, and we couldn't not address it. And I hope that next year we won't have to have a COVID section. It will be history, and then, or maybe we'll have the history of COVID section. So who knows? All right, we still have another 9 or 10 minutes, and I want to ask you guys a question about your next projects, or maybe you don't have a next project as of yet because you want to make sure your film gets distribution, is capitalized to the maximum, and so on. So now let's just take another quick turn around and start with Jean-Noël. What do you plan to do next?
Yes, I will answer this one in French. The next film, it will be about, ça va être avec sur la migration aussi, sur ce thème, c'est-à-dire, for me, I'm a first generation migrant, donc je suis un migrant première génération in France. I come from Mauritius. I was born and I grew up in Mauritius till 18 years old, and I come here for my studies. And the film will be about, c'est la question de moi, j'ai fait mes études, I've done my studies till PhD here, and what about my position, ma position à moi par rapport au racisme et par rapport à la situation des migrants. Comment je vois cela, cette crise, et quelle est la question par rapport à moi, mon point de vue.
Oui.
On dit que j'ai réussi, mais c'est quoi la réussite? C'est quoi? C'est rien en fait. C'est toutes ces questions qui reviennent derrière, les questions en focalisation interne. Voilà, je vais faire un film dessus.
His next project is also about migration or immigration, as you want to put it. Like, for example, the two are interrelated, and I'm sure you can tell the difference. Immigration, migration, they're similar but different. In that sometimes we migrate for economic reasons, educational reasons, and so on. And immigration is like we cut off ourselves from the home country and start a new, completely different life. Migrants are people who come for a particular period of time. And in the case of Jean-Noël, he wants to study about the effects of this displacement. Like in his case, he came to Nancy or France, and he got a PhD at education, and then he's questioning, now what? What do I do with this PhD? Yes, I'm different. Yes, I have the education, but how can I put that into use? And what are the pointers of that? What has it brought to me as a migrant person in terms of racism, prejudice, discrimination, and all those issues that, regardless of whether you have a PhD or not, still persist. So, j'espère que j'ai bien traduit.
Right.
Une analyse aussi en même temps. Donc, oui, parce que well, I cannot not help do the analysis, which I did, because I also have a sociology degree from the London School of Economics.
Oh, great.
In addition to my theater and film journey. So all these issues are very close to my heart, and probably that's what explains as well why I ventured into this festival and social issues and all that, because it puts together the two facets of Nora, the sociologist and socially aware person, and the artist, filmmaker, actress, and all of those things. And it's the combination of the two. So, yeah, Catherine, can you tell us about next projects? I've been seeing other projects on your website, but more,
Yeah.
would like to know more.
Yeah, so again, I'm a producer with Bliss Films. We've got coming up in April a music video on a lighter note with the artist Ruby Sparks. And then we're working on a couple of narrative pieces as well that have to do with women in technology and the aging process.
Oh, that is very important. My next one-woman show is about that
Love to see
aging
it.
process. Actually, in my previous one, which I performed recently at on Theater Row in New York, I do talk about being invisible, and but the next one is going to kind of expand that even more. And I'm glad to hear that other people are going to echo on the same topic. So, Iris, what's your next project?
I started two projects. I started these two projects in Israel. One project, I'm back to the environment once again. 2 years ago, it was about sustainable fashion and also about how fashion pollutes the environment. Now, what I've been doing with regard to the environment is I've been interviewing researchers on the connection between preserving the environment and viruses like COVID and what we can do to protect our planet. And I've also been talking to activists worldwide and basically getting into their head why they're doing this, why they care about the environment. So that's one project. And the other project that I'm working on as well is my father is a Holocaust survivor. So I've been interviewing Holocaust survivors about this year, what they experienced during the pandemic, and not only interviewing them, but also interviewing caretakers, their children, and really trying to get at their message. What do they have to tell us? What are they going to tell us about? What do we need to remember? Not only about what they went through, as survivors, but what is their message of inspiration to future generations?
Oh. Nora, you're on mute.
Yeah, sorry. We were talking about this memory that has been passed through to us through different generations that we haven't necessarily experienced, but what are we doing about it? And that is a very interesting topic. By the way, I don't know if you've had a chance to look at the program. We have a film, documentary feature, the Shoah Ambassadors. And if your father is around, he should come. I would be more than delighted to include him in the Q&A and introduce him and have people share his experiences, because it's about people who are survivors, who are taking upon themselves to spread the word and become ambassadors of Shoah. And that's the documentary we are screening. I think it screens on Sunday, right after The Desire to Live, because it's very much related with the Armenian case and the Holocaust right after it. Jacqueline, what is your next project? And are you playing a role for me in it?
Oh, hopefully. I don't know. I wish I had a cooler answer like all of you guys do. I love hearing about these projects. They sound so incredible. I'm just writing a lot, you know, nothing really set in stone yet. Hopefully make another short this year. Yeah, I mean, I've just been, actually a shout out to a friend of mine, not really my friend and my podcast partner. I've been doing a podcast with my friend Greg Kleinschmidt, and we basically go through the Sight and Sound Top 100 list. So yeah, we wanted to watch the movies on this list. So we watch a movie a week and we talk about it and we have a great time. So that's what I've been doing. It's been taking up a lot of my time right now, but it's a complete blast and we have so much fun with it.
That's great. That's great. And Doug, what about your next project?
Well, I'm going to do John Weiglass is another commission that I'm going to make a documentary for. But in addition to that, 10 years ago, I shot the last 5 space shuttle launches on Kodachrome film, and they stopped processing Kodachrome about 10 years ago. And so I have a bunch of film in my freezer waiting to process Kodachrome film. And just this week, I haven't told anybody this, so later this week, I'm going to get what's called a K-Lab, which is the last remaining Kodachrome processing machine, and refurbish it and hopefully process all the rest of my film. I basically tried to tell a tailgate story. I'm a big science fan, so I love the idea of a bunch of people showing up to Florida to celebrate science and have a tailgate party and picnics and hang out with their family and bring their kids to see a shuttle launch. So I basically documented all that in 35 and 16 millimeter film, and just hoping to process the rest of it so I can actually show it to somebody someday.
That's great. That's great. Well, unfortunately, we have come to the end of our talk. This is very, very interesting to hear all the experiences of the different filmmakers on this program. I have to go off broadcast, off the live now. But if you want to stay for a couple of minutes, we can continue to talk. And if somebody wants to say something burning, like in 2 seconds, please use that. It's okay if we go 1 or 2 minutes over. Anybody? Burning statement?
I was so great to talk to all of you. I look forward to seeing all your films. They really sound incredible, truly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Likewise.
Pour tout le monde.
Okay, thank you all again very much. Thank you to our wonderful viewers. We have quite a good group today, and the people who asked questions, somebody put me a chat. Thank you all. I can't wait to see these films. Great, yes, we all do. Okay, I'm going to